It's Maddie Hendricks, the classically trained coloratura soprano, and today I want to talk about breathing for singing. This is my absolute favorite singing topic, so just going ahead and putting that out there. I love this topic so much because it's so mysterious and there's so much to talk about, so sorry if this video ends up being super long. I have a lot to say. And I'm excited to do more videos on this as my perspective grows and deepens. So you are welcome to try some of these ideas and exercises that I talk about at the end. But every voice and body is special and unique and different. So sometimes you may not feel it exactly as I describe it. So yeah, just do what feels good for you and works for you, and if you're taking lessons, it works for your new teacher. So also, in an effort to make this accessible to singers who are blind like I am, I will be verbally describing what I'm doing. So if you're a sighted person watching this and wondering, why is she saying she's putting her hands on her rib cage? That's why. Okay. So breathing and breath support, how to get body or anchor in the sound. I like this idea of the anchor because it reminds me to be low and stay low in my body. And I feel like this is one of the keys to building a strong voice. So essential. And I feel like breathing advice and breathing ideas is something every singer hears about, and even as a singer who's gone through a lot of training and lessons, and I've gone through bachelor's, master's, artist diploma degrees, and I'm working on the young artist track now as a young singer. I'm still working on my breathing and going back to the basics, and I think that is really important to go back to the basics, because breathing is one of the foundations for good, healthy singing. I've grown a lot in this area, but it's also something that I'm still working on. And so there was some myths and misinformation that I had to work through about breathing. And one thing that I had to do was remap my breathing. Think about where it happens, it really happens, and kind of rework what my body knew how to do and had learned, and kind of unlearn some things that I had thought about from listening to vocal training CDs and such, that I didn't really quite understand what exactly I was doing. So that really helped me when having a teacher in person to really show me and talk to me about my body and how it worked. So sometimes I know when we talk about breathing, sometimes we talk about images, such as, for example, breathe into the belly, air filling the belly, imagine air filling the belly. These are myths in the sense that that's not anatomically actually what's going on in our bodies. So I'm grateful for academic study, because knowing anatomy helped me make sense of what was going on in my body, and helps me personally sing better and breathe better. Again, good breathing sets up good singing. So those are just my initial thoughts. So again, I talked about remapping my body. This started with I feel like you can't breathe well without first being well aligned. So thinking about posture is really important. Not a stiff posture or like straight and stiff like a stick, which is what I would do when I would be nervous. But yeah, just a very fluid, nice and relaxed posture. And with singing, once I got the posture figured out and got my alignment figured out for my body, learning that singing, our voice lives in our larynx, but our body is our instrument. So getting the entire body prepared was really necessary. So for me, posture-wise, I start with my feet, and I like to actually not keep them shoulder width apart. I like to kind of have a little step forward with either my right or my left foot, not terribly too much, not to the extreme, but just a little bit, so that I can feel like I can move forward if I want to. I feel like I can have relaxed knees, a little bit of bend in the knees, not locking the knees, and then the hips are also relaxed. The hips and the pelvis are relaxed, and the rib cage is nice and open and relaxed. So I like to put my hands, I'm gonna reach my hands up and put them over my head and have that nice feeling of openness in my chest. And that's really nice. I'm bringing my hands out to my side, having them straight, left, one reaching out to the left, my left hand reaching out to the left, and my right hand reaching out to the right, and then all the way down. And keeping that openness and expansiveness in the chest really helps. And then having the head just loose, like a bobblehead, on top of the spine, the skull. Yeah, okay. All right, so that's just quick overview there. And again, it was crazy to just really learn and really think about that my body was so connected. So, for example, starting at the larynx, it's the top of the trachea, which vents out into the lungs, and then the diaphragm sits below at the bottom of the lungs, and the diaphragm has attachments into the spine and the pelvic muscles, and those muscles attach into the femur and the tibia, and then we work down into the feet. So when I said the body is the entire instrument, I meant it. I meant it. So true. So yeah, just a quick overview of posture and how I like to kind of think about it. So again, lots of breathing myths, and it can get complicated, but I like to kind of keep it simple. Because yeah, that's the name of the channel, Classical Singing Made Simple. Why not? Okay. I feel like one of the most common things that singers hear is about breathing from the diaphragm and singing from the diaphragm, and I had to kind of think about when I got to training, like, oh my gosh, where actually is my diaphragm? I actually wasn't actually sure. I used to think it was in that squishy spot right between my ribs and my belly button. And sometimes people point there, and that is actually the epigastrium, or the solar plexus. That's not actually the diaphragm. The diaphragm's actually a little bit higher. It sits below the lungs, and the rib cage protects our lungs, and the diaphragm separates the thoracic cavity and the abdominal cavity. So it's I heard someone say it's the floor of the thoracic cavity and the ceiling of the abdominal cavity. So that's kind of cool. I was like, okay, that makes sense. It's a very large muscle too. I believe it's the second largest in our body. And it attaches all the way around our rib cage. So going all the way around our rib cage. And the coolest fun fact that I've heard recently, that I'm actually still researching, and this was wild, this kind of changed a lot of things for me, is that at least what I'm learning so far, what I've learned so far, I'll do some more research on this, the diaphragm has no nerve endings, as far as I've researched and that I know. So that means that we actually can't feel it. That's crazy for me to, when I learned that and read that. And so it's very mysterious to me. It's, especially as a blind singer, not being actually able to see it or see a picture of it. It's located deep within the body, so we can't feel it. We don't have direct control over it. So this got me thinking, like, okay, what does happen? What do I need to know? And what do we need to do to breathe well? So learning about that, when we inhale, the diaphragm descends. The brain sends a signal to our diaphragm and our intercostal muscles and our ribs. and that expands the rib cage, so the diaphragm contracts. It goes down slightly, not too much, but this expands our rib cage, and this allows air into the lungs. So when I started work on expanding my ribs and releasing my belly, releasing the abdomen, because that contraction of the diaphragm, that is what allows our belly to expand. We don't have to overdo it. We don't have to like stick our belly out or anything like that. The belly expands because of the action of the diaphragm and moving down, because it moves down on top of those internal organs, and so that's what causes that expansion. Now, having said all of that, breathing with the rib cage does not necessarily mean a high breath. This is called a clavicular breath. I'm putting my hands on my collarbone, my clavicle, and that is not that's not a desirable breath. We don't want too much air. Like we can over breathe, and that hasn't served me too well. I do get into that sort of clavicular breath when I am nervous, and when I'm kind of feeling gaspy and like when I need to gasp for breath, but I don't need to. It's not also, on the other end, it's not too low of a breath, as I said, not sticking the abdomen out, allowing the abdomen to expand. And then this is my idea of exhalation, yeah. So the idea for singing is that we want to keep the ribs expanded and open for as long as possible. This doesn't mean locking the ribs, but it means, I'll explain it more about what apogeo means, and letting the abs work. And I feel this like gentle flexing of my abs, this gentle like down and out kind of feeling. Exhalation to me is not pushing or pulling in on my abs up and pulling up and hard. In fact, we have 4 sets of abdominal muscles. The rectus, the 6-pack, which runs up and down, and that contracting it brings the sternum down, which again doesn't sound terribly helpful for breathing. For singers, I've never found sit-ups, for example. This is an exercise that we would do like when we want to strengthen our rectus, our 6-pack muscles, sit-ups, crunches, those kind of things. I've never found those helpful for my voice, and now I get it. I understand why, because it makes sense. If it brings the lungs, the sternum down, that makes sense. I feel like it's the least effective for singing. The muscles that we want to engage are the next 3 pairs, the external and internal obliques, rib to hips, and also the transverse, which is right above the pubic bone. Very technical and very anatomical explanation there, but knowing these muscles was so helpful for me. Getting into that detail, I love it. It might not be for everyone, but yeah, I love it. I'm a vocal pedagogy nerd. And then also there are muscles in our low back that help us. So the ways that help me feel this deep muscle engagement, I love feeling this idea of this groan or cry, or these like primal sounds that really help me feel this. That very deep feeling in my belly is what I feel. I feel that, and there are these primal sounds that can be very strange when you listen to them. Like, oh my gosh, that is so strange. How does it help you sing? But it does. I found it very, very helpful. And my personal opinion is that singing is a deeply emotional thing, or it can be. So connecting to those deep muscles that help us access those emotions, whether we're crying or laughing really hard, yeah, that's my idea of why it helps. There are other exercises that I'll share in another video. So this idea of appoggio is it's an Italian term. It means to lean. And what are we leaning on? We're leaning on the feeling of inhalation. It's not the idea, as I said earlier, of locking the ribs, locking the rib cage, but it's just keeping the ribs open, as if we're like still drinking the air in. Again, images. Yeah. I had a teacher that would say keeping a gentle pillow of air pressure underneath the vocal folds. It's about balance. Not overblowing, and not using the breath, not like using too little air, which is kind of what I came into undergrad doing. So, yay! So that's the idea of like singing on the breath. That's my thought about it. Okay, so breath control. I think that breath support and breath control. So breath control to me is that relationship between those inhalation muscles, the intercostals, external intercostals, and the muscles in between our ribs, and those expiratory muscles that help us regulate their air pressure supplied to the vocal folds. So that's how I think about it. In my vocal pedagogy book that I love very much, Scott McCoy says that in Your Voice the Basics, quote, I like this idea. We might say that breath support enables the production of beautiful sounds, and breath control allows those sounds to last to the end of a long phrase, or phrases. I like this. I like that idea a lot. Yes, I would love to. So that was my very long-winded overview of how I think about breathing, and thinking about, again, like where is the work? Where does it happen? It doesn't happen from the throat or from the neck and the muscles in the jaw. Getting it to that lower place in the body, I feel like is what I want to do. So, very last thing I wanted to talk about was some exercises that I like to do at the moment for finding breath support. And again, support is actually not done with the diaphragm. Some people say support with your diaphragm, but the diaphragm actually only acts. I don't know if I said this actually. The diaphragm only acts on inhalation, and the lower body muscles, the muscles surrounding the diaphragm, are what are supporting the breath and allowing the diaphragm to slowly rise. That's essentially what we want. Yeah, I feel it again, as I talked about, those deep muscles, the muscles in the low back, the hips, and the pelvic floor. Some ideas. I like actually getting on all fours, feeling myself like grounded into the floor can really help. Getting on all fours, lying down on the floor, the idea of just feeling very planted and grounded. I had a teacher that really helped me get into my body by telling me this image of this maybe isn't good for our nervous system, because it's kind of traumatizing, I guess. So the image is that if you imagine having a rug, standing on a rug, and imagine that rug is being pulled from underneath you, and that helped me plant my feet. That would be a scary thing to happen, but it helped me plant my feet and really get into my body. The other thing David Jones showed me about hugging, this idea of hugging the tree. So I'm going to put my arms out in front of me, like I'm giving a big hug to a big tree, and this helps me get my rib cage nice and open, and I like that. I like that idea of hugging the tree to help me kind of keep that stabilization. Again, not locking the shoulders, not locking, but it's nice and relaxed. But the rib cage is open. And then, as I mentioned, the primal sounds earlier. So the other thing that the last final thing that I wanted to say was I don't feel like singing requires a ton of air. Specifically, I've heard this about classical singing, that classical singers need a ton of air pressure to sing, a ton of airflow at the vocal folds to sing. I don't feel like that's very helpful. That hasn't been very helpful for me. I wonder if it's because, I'm not sure, I'll have to do some more research, but maybe it's the idea of like a big sound requires a lot of air to get a high note out. And I feel like we can use too much air, and that's not good for our delicate vocal folds that are very, very small. So I remember this causing some pitch issues for me as a very young singer, me going sharp, and it also, my experience was that it caused some wobbly vibrato in 2023, a couple of years ago now. Someone described it to me this way, like imagining a flag in a gentle breeze, a flag flying in a gentle breeze versus the flag in a tornado or a hurricane. That makes sense to me. We don't want to overblow. We don't want to overblow. Airflow for singing should be gentle and steady, and that's the idea for me. So guys, so sorry this has been such a long video, but as you can tell, I am a breathing nerd when it comes to breathing for singing. So there's so much to unpack here, and I would like to say that I'd love to come on and talk more about this topic and talk more about things that I'm doing in my singing that help me breathe better and sing better. But yeah, that's all for now, and I hope you have enjoyed, and feel free to subscribe to the channel if you're interested in nerdy classical singing videos, or just learning about your voice, because yeah, I love this. Thanks everybody, and stay tuned for the next video.